to talk about the private sector in India. 10 years ago, crisis of confidence, NPA issue, many companies going under, a regulation that was frequently changing, there was no policy certainty. Today, when a lot of analysts say that the private sector is lagging behind the government in investing, is that a fair assessment? Do you share that opinion? And if you were to, what would you say to leading lights of corporate India?
So the country had several challenges. You know, we were in the fragile five. We have moved on to big, in a very short period, we've come into the top five. We were in the fragile five because we had a twin balance sheet problem. The bank balance sheets were bad. The corporate balance sheet was even worse. And we had a twin deficit problem. Both the fiscal deficit and the current deficit were both challenges. The corporate balance sheet are in top class condition right now. And the bank balance sheet, the Indian banks have never been in better condition. In fact, my view is that the India's private debt to GDP share is still low. It's at about 57, 58% compared to almost about 180% in United States and 160% in many other parts of European countries. So there is a need to do more debt to the private sector of India in a systematic, transparent manner. And my view is that private sector capex will kick in now, and India will be on a long trajectory of growth for the next decade because of the private sector, not the government. The government has done its bit by putting in capex at the time when it was required, because that was the COVID period. We couldn't have expected private sector to put in money. Many of them did. But you will now see with this really growing and expanding balance sheets of the private sector, capacity utilization crossing about 75%, I'm very optimistic that private capex will kick in, and once it kicks in, that virtuous cycle of growth will be there for the next 1 decade for India.
Once private sector kicks in a really strong, meaningful manner, do you think it will address one of the bigger societal issues that we are seeing, which is the need for creating more and more jobs? Employment is being created, but because of the sheer number, it's a big issue. Do you see that will happen because the government has limited capacity in adding jobs?
So, you know, why I say the private capex will kick in is because, you know, when we had this challenge in the COVID era, there were two options before the government. The government could have taken a consumer-led approach, and which is to provide more resources to the consumers, but that has inflationary, that normally tends to be inflationary. Packages across the world have been inflationary. India was very tight on those packages. It put money straight into the bank accounts of beneficiaries.
Did you agree with that?
I totally agree, because the government decided that it would rather be a capex-led growth. This takes a little more time, but in the long run, a capex-led growth is far more enriching for the country over a period of time. And that's why I'm very confident that private capex will kick in. And the second thing which is happening is very good, is that the government is the policy measures, if you look at it. You know, I was involved, actually I drove the production-linked incentive scheme. So the government is getting into sunrise areas of growth. You know, quite often in India we've lagged behind, whether it was 2G, 3G, 4G, we've lagged years behind. 5G, we've moved forward. You know, we've moved forward in AI. You know, this new 10,000 crore package of procuring GPUs so that you have the computing power of India to blend both digital public infrastructure and artificial intelligence together to technologically leapfrog in many of these, or electric vehicles or battery storage. These are going to be the sunrise areas of growth of the future, which will drive India's growth story. They will get you the big ticket, big spending money, you know, the big earnings. They are the areas where you need to penetrate global markets. You know, it will not be your traditional, you will not get value in traditional sectors of just food, agriculture, textiles. The world moves on in every 3 to 4 years, and you have to catch up into those new cycles of growth.
Quick interjection there. You mentioned 5G, but when it comes to 5G, the networks and the operators, if you were to ask them, would perhaps tell us privately that monetization still seems to be a distant dream.
Yeah, monetization will happen. It's you know, in India, we must understand it's a size and scale market. The margin is thin, but it's a lot of size and scale. And therefore, I think I'm quite sure that all these companies, you know, Mr. Sunil Mittal is sitting here. His balance sheet is very good right now.
We'll hear from him.
Yeah. I mean, you know,
I think Mr. Kant is setting the stage for the next
every award function you go to, the only award of the best CEO goes to Mr. Sunil Mittal because of his balance sheet.